So my name's Destiny. I'm the Democracy and Campaigns Officer, and I'll be chairing this meeting today. The purpose of the annual members meeting is to approve how the union spends its money, receive progress updates from the elected officers, and it's an important opportunity for our members, so the students, to input into how the union is run. The students can vote on items and ask questions. The agenda and associated papers are available, and Andy will just drop the link in the chat so you can all see the papers there. Students will at times be invited to speak on issues if they wish. The chair will make clear when these times are. I will also ensure that timings are kept and prevent anyone else from speaking too long, so the minutes will be kept. I'll now pass on over to Andy to speak about point 7.
Hi everyone, I'm just going to quickly explain how the voting platform works. So we have an online voting platform where you will be able to log in and then cast your vote when it's time to do so. So you have to go to upsu.net/vote, which I'm just going to put in the chat now so everyone's got it easier. So it's just upsu.net/vote, and then it will ask you to log in if you're not already logged in. So you click on the student login button, and then it will ask you for your surname and your student number. So you put those in, and then you will get a link to log in. And then once you're logged in, you should be able to see the different voting, the things that we'll be voting on today during AMM. And then Destiny will explain when it is time to vote on each one. Cool.
Thank you for that, Andy. We advise for all student attendees to watch and participate in discussions before voting, and the voting will be open for 24 hours, so you can take a little bit more time to make your decisions. And the results of today's voting items will be announced tomorrow afternoon. You can all submit motions of your own, and these will be discussed at point 9 of the agenda. And any motion submitted should be done by the close of discussion, point 5. And I would like to ask all of you to respect those speaking and not cut people off while they're speaking. I'll now like to invite Hayley, who's the welfare officer, to present the previous meetings from 2018-2019.
Thank you, Destiny. As you can see in the agenda, there is a link to the results of 2019 annual members review. So I'll just read out some of the highlights from that. So the document sets out the review, as I said. So in June 2019, the report and feedback on the legal governance was presented to UPSU Board of Trustees. The advice gave clarification that annual members meeting did not have to be held in a meeting format and could be amended as required. It was agreed for the component parts of the content previously delivered at AMM to be delivered in the following way, and that is officer reports to be placed online in late November, for students to ask questions digitally, and we worked to deliver interactive online updates. As there were no affiliations requiring approval, there was no need for a vote on external affiliations, and new affiliations could be proposed by students, but none were submitted. Bylaw 2.1 outlines that students need to receive the financial accounts for UPSU and PSUT, which is our trade in arms. This was published online from mid-October until November end and allowed for students to ask questions on these. So for the website featured the following information: sabbatical officer reports from last year. So these were presented in the form of video reports. Students submitted questions based on these reports, and there was also a link to the Officers Manifesto tracker as well. Also included financial reports. These were presented for both UPSU and PSUT. Policy lapse. Information was presented about policies that were due to lapse. Only one policy was due to lapse. This was the university transparency motions, and there's a link in the agenda to that as well. As no student came forward to request keeping it, it was considered lapsed. There was additional promotion for SABs on campus, so officers were on campus from Monday, the 3rd of December, promoting AMR, where the majority of questions submitted from students came from. In terms of the engagement that we had from last year, there was a total of 156 unique students that visited the webpage, and a total of 72 students submitted questions. This is a significant success, as previously 1 or 2 questions would have been submitted in the meeting. 13 of these were on UPSU and PSUT finances, and 58 were for the sabbatical officers on their manifesto and campaign progress. And that's a report from last year. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Hayley. You can all also look at the documentation online for to make a more informed decision. Voting is now open, and Andy will share the link, so you can all start to vote when you like to. So agenda point 4 is review. Does anyone have any questions? No. Agenda point 4 is reviewing the accounts of UPSU. So now we'll look at how UPSU's money was spent in 2019-2020. Mike, would you like to present this?
Yeah, hello everyone. So we're going over the Students' Union report and PSUT, so Portsmouth Trading Company. So this report obviously is a legal necessity that we have to provide you these documents annually. So for our income totaled 1,843,205, and this is a decrease of 435,708 from 2018-19. We mainly get this obviously income from the block grant, which is 554 paid by the university, and an additional 287,546 made in profit from PSUT. So expenditure for the total year, 1,891,319. This is a decrease of 425,756 from 18-19. So a large amount of our budget, which you can see there, is on staffing and training. The union employs approximately 40 members of staff and further 40 occasional members of staff to help delivery. Some key cost areas are 370,231 on development activities. So includes training, sports teams, clubs and societies. 378,132 on representation. Also 363,032 on welfare. Where else am I? Sorry. UPSU also acts as a trustee for restricted funds raised by student groups and clubs, and this year their total income totaled 133,867, as an increase of 35,613 from last year. So impact of COVID on UPSU finances. So due to the outbreak of COVID, we had 57,000 underspend in salaries, of which 6,000 was student casual staffing, and 18,700 underspend on marketing, mainly due to the building being closed, and we're not being able to undertake the rebranding activity of that. 21,000 underspend on projects, mainly due to obviously Freshers' Fair and Welcome Month activities, and the breakdowns there as well. 3,600 underspend on ticket sales and donations, 5,700 underspend in student groups due to obviously cessation of physical activities. Same with obviously 6,200 in focus team, 5,400 in insights team. Obviously the ongoing impact of COVID-19 has resulted in a 10% reduction from our block grant from the university. But obviously UPSU has sufficient funds, so don't worry.
Thank you for that, Mike. Does anyone have any questions on what we've kind of done this year and the money that we've spent? If you do, you can just drop your questions in the chat. Yep, I'll now move on to the next agenda item. Next item on our agenda. So point 4 is to review the accounts. And we'll now go through the PUSUP financial accounts. Our development officer, Mike, will go through this as well.
Yes, so PUSUP is obviously Portsmouth Union Trading Company. So obviously we've experienced some changes in there with the head of business and marketing, obviously departure, and employment and marketing design coordinator, and obviously COVID-19 with furlough restrictions. So retail experienced losses of 62,986, largely due to the closure of university campus, and obviously the corporate merchandise offering once business development manager refund from furlough. Partnership finished 12,804 down on budget. This is obviously due to COVID-19 lockdown again. The digital consultancy launch was delayed until Q4 to enable the products to be completed and the brand to be re-established. Where am I in? So Q1, the impact of COVID-19 continues to plague PUSUP business models, and plans made in 1920 have had continued to evolve and maintain agility. All members of the PUSUP team returned from furlough in August and September, with union building reopening and the union shop being able to trade. So retail, clothing and merchandise, clothing forecast was set at 4,581. Suppliers have allowed for discounts and opportunities, and a robust comms plan for Q1 was 12,097. Merchandise forecast set at 1,567. Sales hindered due to the lack of on-site teaching and study. However, 1,503 achieved through sales, the products such as Lanyards and ID holders. Corporate merchandise forecast was set at 17,157. This has been severely impacted by effects of COVID-19 on University of Portsmouth budgeting, and the lack of students and staff on site have been 4,431. The print shack budget from August to the month end was 1,416. Income achieved 439. Deficit partly due to the lack of on-site presence, and particularly due to the COVID-19 again. So total forecast income for Q1 was 350. Achieved income 1,611. So partnerships is low again. So from August to October, month end set at 20,000. Actual income was 6,143, and that's due to the lack of physical freshers fair and activities with partnerships. Mem Plus, digital offering and pricing structure under review, following interest generated through business management, reaching out to issues and additional researches into competitors. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Mike. I just want to remind everyone that voting is open and the link will be put in the chat, so please do vote. We will now move on to agenda point 5, officer reports. If you, sorry, 1 second. I think someone needs support, guys. They'll just support you with that. Thank you for letting us know. So the officer reports, this is to hold elected officers to account. There is no voting for this, but students will be encouraged to submit questions. Now we'll show videos of each officer presenting what they've done for the past year.
I'm Edward and I'm your elected officer for academic representation. I work with the Students' Union and the university to help ensure that the student voice is heard regarding all things academia. This year has provided some difficult challenges for us all, and as such, the nature of some of the work we do here at the union has had to change and adapt to fit the more virtual current climate. So far this year, I have been working on several things, including improving the clarity of coursework instructions, increasing the amount of one-to-one support offered by lecturers, and exploring the possibility of making timetables more accessible to all types of students. In addition to this, I have recently been working on introducing a new legacy project centering around making the university more environmentally friendly, working towards carbon neutrality, and encouraging the local wildlife through lobbying the university to provide more green spaces and wilding areas. This project is still in its infancy, however, so watch this space. I've also been working on increasing the support for international and postgraduate students, and on some other exciting projects that you should hopefully be hearing more about in the near future. It has been my privilege this year to get to better understand the workings of the Union and the university, and to represent its assiduous and learned students. Seeing the scale of just what can be achieved at the Union puts me in high spirits for the future of our university. Whilst I have started work in many areas, there is still plenty of progress to be made. During the remainder of my tenure as an elected officer this academic year, I would like to continue my work increasing and improving the communication between lecturers and students, and ensuring that students are able to get the most out of the new, more virtual learning environment. I also hope to work to make the university a greener and more environmentally friendly space, and hopefully in the months to come to introduce some newer projects designed to help provide students with some of the things we know you are all passionate about. I sincerely hope you enjoy your time studying with the university, and should you have any academic-related issues, praises, complaints, or queries you wish to bring to my attention, don't hesitate to get in contact. Thank you for your time, and I wish you a happy end to the year.
Does anyone have any questions? No? We can move on to the next officer then.
Hi, I'm Hayley Mcintyre. I'm the elected welfare officer at the Students' Union. The annual members meeting is a chance for me to talk about what I've been working on this year, the progress I've made, and to be held accountable by the student body. So I'll start talking about the main things I've been working on. As you know, COVID has taken a massive amount of the work that we do as a Students' Union. I've been actively involved in those meetings that are happening at a senior level at the university, including the planning and delivery of the academic year, as well as the operational group, which involved supporting students over the Christmas period. I've been working quite closely with public health as well and the local police to make sure the right messaging is out to the student community and as well as the local community to make sure everyone's keeping safe and looking out for each other. That's been quite a big piece of work I've been working on. A lot of things I've been doing as well is if you are on Instagram, is the regular live Q&As with some senior staff. Some of these people include the Vice Chancellor, the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Global Engagement, more recently the Head of Student Wellbeing, to talk more about how students can be supported at this time, especially over the Christmas break, where students may be away from university, and as the university closes as well. My work is mainly about COVID safety, student wellbeing, making sure everything that's in place for students is around COVID safety, making sure that the university are making the right decisions in the best interest of students. I'm just going to talk a bit more about my proudest achievements and the sort of most impactful work I believe I've had. One of them is creating emergency food parcels for students. So those students who came in the September-October time from other countries and may have to self-isolate for 2 weeks, as a Students' Union, we came together and created emergency food parcels. So that included basic items as well, like hygiene products, as well as fresh food. So that was really enjoyable, and it was good to see that students, were impacted by that in a good way. More recently, I've introduced a free e-voucher system where students can sign up to get a free flu jab. We recognise that, having COVID over the winter period as well, that may have similar symptoms with flu. So we want to make sure that students are protected from flu as well, and that there are no barriers for students accessing that, whether that's financial hardship or you're not signed up to doctors in Portsmouth, but you're staying in Portsmouth over Christmas. So that's available for all students. More recently as well, with the new government guidelines around Christmas travel and that Christmas window period where students can travel home, we built an officer stance on that. That was a big piece of work that we had to turn over quite quickly and make sure that we do what we believe is best for students. And we're supporting students as much as we can by being involved in the university meetings, and in that process to make sure that students can get home safely, and the students who are not hoping to go home and staying in Portsmouth over Christmas, those students are not forgotten as well. Also being directly involved in some of the meetings and discussions, particularly with Rama, the Learning Experience Officer, and Destiny, our Democracy and Campaigns Officer, about supporting students through the disciplinary processes, because it can be quite a stressful experience for students. And the experience that we've had sitting on those disciplinary panels, we don't believe that students are always fully informed or supported, particularly international students whose English is not their first language, may be disadvantaged in those meetings because they may not understand the academic jargon and the academic language that is used that is overcomplicated. So we want to make sure that the disciplinary process is accessible and supportive for all students, and there are no barriers for students getting the right outcome and support they need. This is also the case with sexual misconduct. As some of you might be aware, I was working on that last year. I've picked up that piece of work again, but it's still a really important thing, and I'm making good progress with that as well. And we've got the survey coming out this month in November, which should really help, inform some of the policy changes that are happening at the university. Besides all of that as well, there are still some more things I want to be able to achieve this year. It's the Sunflower Lanyard campaign. As you might be aware, sunflower lanyards are worn by people who have hidden disabilities, or they feel like they may not be able to express themselves in a certain way, and they might have difficulties communicating. So it's having that available for students, and in a way creating a sort of more inclusive and kinder campus, and a campus that's more understanding and accommodating to students with hidden disabilities. Another one is drug testing kits. So that's a piece of work that I wanted to start at the beginning of the year due to my manifesto. Had to take a bit of a pause, but I want to make sure that students are getting the right support. Our stance is that if students want to take drugs, they need to be fully informed and make sure they're doing it in a safe way. If it does become an issue, students can get the right support they need rather than being punished. Another exciting one, which is also my manifesto, is free sustainable period products in the Students' Union and the university. Managed to find supply, which is really good. So now hopefully we can roll those out to the student community. There are lots of other things as well that are happening, but please do follow me on Facebook, follow the union Instagram to just keep up to date with what I've been working on. And please, continue to be in contact with us. We need your feedback, we value your feedback so we can do things in the best interest for you. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Hayley. I know we've had some pre-submitted questions, and then we'll just move on to the questions that have been put in the chat box. The first question for you, Hayley, was sent by a student asking that the university is providing Christmas meals for students. However, this is only for students staying in the university halls. How come most of the over Christmas support that I have seen advertised from students is only benefiting students staying in university halls?
Well, thank you for the question.
I'll just put the question in the text box as well, the chat box as well.
Sorry, Destiny. Yeah, so I think there's a bit of a misperception about who the support for students over Christmas, because it's being provided by
Hayley, are
Reslife.
you muted? We can't really hear you.
Oh, can you hear me? Yeah. Mike's nodding, so I think that's good. Okay, if you can't hear me, just put in the chat. Yeah, so I think there's a bit of a misconception or misperception of the support that's available over Christmas. Because of the Christmas closure on the 18th of the university, Reslife will be providing the majority of support for students, and Reslife predominantly are based in student halls and act as student hall support. However, over the Christmas period, they are reaching out to any student that is in Portsmouth over Christmas, whether you're living in Southsea, whether you're living up north in Portsmouth. So the support, so the food packages, if you need to self-isolate, the Christmas packages, if you want a Christmas meal, they are not limited to students in halls. I have passed that feedback to some university staff that students mainly perceive Reslife support as hall support, but this is not the case. This is for all students who are living in Portsmouth. So I hope that makes sense.
Thank you for that, Hayley. So our next question is, why has there been a lack of sanitary products in the female toilets? Last year I found out that I found this so helpful if you ever got caught out. So I'll just put that in the question as well.
Yeah, thanks, Destiny. So last year I was leading on the project to allow students to have free sanitary products in the union toilets. Unfortunately, because we have been mainly on off-site since March, there has been no one in the building to monitor. Myself, I haven't been in the building to monitor that and to be able to provide them. So it is a bit of a shame that that support hasn't been continued because of that barrier. So I'm really sorry that you've been disadvantaged by that. However, we've just, as I mentioned in the video, you might have missed it because I was saying so much, but we have found, well, I have found a supplier for sustainable period products. So that's tampons, pads, as well as moon cups. So we've got the funding secured for that. We've got the funding approved. So hopefully in the new year, we can get those straight out there and have enough supply. But again, I'm really sorry that you were disadvantaged by not us being in the building and not having access to those products. My next sort of work that I want to do, which I put in my manifesto, is to roll those out in university buildings as well. Because of issues of coronavirus, I didn't have the capacity to do that this year, unfortunately, but from January, I'm going to try and do that again. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. We can now move on to the questions that have been put in the chat box. I think Jan asked, hello, I wanted to know more about what has been done about sexual misconduct and possible policies. Hayley, I know you've mentioned quite a lot about kind of sexual misconduct and what you're doing as well, but is there anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the video, I did mention that we had a survey coming out in November. This is still out and it closes on Friday. So the survey was intended for students to fill out and understand the behaviours and perceptions of what students think about sexual misconduct and perhaps their experiences as a University of Portsmouth student. This is something I wanted to do last year, but COVID unfortunately got in the way. We've had some really positive responses. So we've had over 1,300 responses now. So the point of that survey was to use that data to help inform the work that I've been doing at the university. So look at improving the reporting procedure and the support and the process for students. So what we're really keen to do, I've been working quite closely with the Union Advice Service and the Student Wellbeing Service at the university to see if we can secure some funding to get a support liaison officer for a student who has experienced sexual assault or rape or any other kind of harassment, and to be that linked liaison officer that is with them throughout the whole process, because it does go through different people. The process can be long, it can be traumatic, it can be draining. So we want to make sure there's enough support for students as possible. The first thing that we did with that was write a paper to review the code of student behaviour. So that is a policy that outlines the behaviours that are unacceptable at the university and the consequences if a student does carry out those behaviours. So we're making it more clear in the code of student behaviour that sexual misconduct will come under that policy, and also being explicit about what sexual misconduct is, because there's such a misconception about what it might be and what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. We want to make sure that students who feel like they have been sexually assaulted, sexually violated, are getting that support, they can report and they can get the result they want. That work is now being extended with a huge review of academic regulations, which all of us officers are involved in now. So hopefully by the time of next year, we'll have a really good policy that is in and available for students.
I'll just take one more question. So Elliot said the Sunflower Lanyard campaign is a great idea. However, it only works when the community is educated on issues around disabilities and neurodiversity conditions. What is being done to address this? Elliot, I know we're starting a lot of kind of the neurodiversity and disabilities campaign with activist students that you're actually involved in. So that's one way we can start. But Hayley, I'm sure you've got some more to add. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that's really valid. When we are giving out the sunflower lanyards, we also have sunflower badges for students to wear to know that they're trained and aware of issues in neurodiversity, so they can support students. So with the lanyard and the badges, there will be a pledge card which will link out to the ASDAC service in the university that supports students with neurodiverse issues and just knowledge about neurodiversity in general, so students can be trained and aware of how they can support other students in those situations. So I hope that helps, but I'd be really happy to hear your ideas and your involvement and how you want to support that project.
Thank you, Hayley. I know we've got a few other questions, but they will be addressed later. Do we want to move on to the next officer's video?
Hi everyone, my name is Destiny and I'm the Democracy and Campaigns Officer. One of my main manifesto points this year was to tackle the BAME attainment gap. To do this, I'm introducing the BAME Careers Programme, which will enable BAME students to network with professionals from different backgrounds to explain how they overcame certain boundaries to become successful in their careers. My second manifesto point was to introduce a system that shows study spaces availability before getting to the library, and this was luckily a quick win and will be done by the end of November. My third manifesto point was to improve the relationship between the union and the students through creating focus groups. To do this, I've created the Activist Students Forum, which enables and acts as a platform for students to raise their voice and speak about issues which they may not have. These can be local issues, such as issues in your accommodations or in universities or in your local area. These can be national issues, such as tuition fees, or even international issues, such as climate change. This platform will allow students to discuss issues and campaign on it. My fourth manifesto point was to tackle ineffective landlords. To do this, I thought it was necessary to implement an initiative that allows students to give direct feedback from halls. This is how I introduce the Student Halls Champions. The students give us direct feedback, allowing us to do all we can to support those students, even if it means lobbying the accommodations. My fifth manifesto point was to increase mental health resources and decrease waiting lists. This was, again, a quick win, as we currently have no waiting lists. Alongside my manifesto points, I've been working on a lot of other projects. Me and Rahman created a Tackling Racism in Higher Education workstream, which consists of 4 different working strands, which is decolonising the curriculum, diversifying student experience, Black Lives Matter and Black History Month. We are also working to adopt a zero tolerance to racism policy within the union, which will hopefully be able to influence the university on. I'm also doing work around careers and employment diversity. I've had several meetings and I'm working towards including opportunities for BAME students within their website. Me, Rama and Hayley are also working on disciplinary panels, where we understand the cultural indifferences that panel members may have to some students and making sure that staff members do undertake cultural sensitivity training. I'm also working with other students to implement a Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Student Committee in different faculties. I'm currently leading a finance campaign where I'm putting together infographics to show students every fund that is available for them by Student Fund Finance. I'm also working on a Estranged Students campaign where we will be meeting estranged students to explore their needs a month. I'm also working hard and liaising with student accommodations to make sure that students can move to different social bubble flats when isolating alone. This year, I've been very proud of setting up the Student Halls Champions initiative and the Activist Students Forum. However, although we've been doing a lot of work to support students, I still have many things that I hope to achieve this year, such as making sure that the university adopts zero tolerance to racism policy and making sure that students have a 24/7 helpline. I also want to make sure that BAME students and LGBTQ+ students have a tick box on wellbeing forms when seeing practitioners. Thank you for listening.
Thank you guys for watching my very long video. Have you got any questions? Or I know we've got a pre-submitted question, and I'll just address that first. So a student has asked if student council is only now being recruited, what has been in place for this term? So over the past few months, the rest of the officers and I have been working to undertake an interim UAB. This has meant that we have been able to clear the backlogs of Have Your Say, and has also meant that we have been able to hold each other to account and make sure that we are progressing on our manifesto points. This has been because we have been working on the reformation of been trying to make a council more responsive to the needs of our students. Due to COVID, this process has been taken longer than we would have wanted, and we would have liked to launch the new student council in September, but we were unfortunately not able to do this. Fortunately, this process has now been completed and we are now ready to launch after the winter break. Does anyone have any other questions? No? We can now move on to the next officer's video.
Hi, I'm Mike Cadell and I am this year's elected development officer. Some of my main areas of work have been a Can-Do initiative that works across in partnership with the university to deliver a positive student experience around COVID-19 and show students what they can do. Purple Champions, which is a volunteer programme that looks at delivering outreach opportunities across students on campus. So far this year, I've been working on a huge Movember campaign that has raised lots of money across the university. Groups and clubs social media helping to promote all the great achievements and events that they have been doing all year. Food parcels for isolated students. I've also been proud of pushing for student experience during this uneasy time. I've looked past this and I've worked on projects that hopefully can deliver an experience that most students want. I still believe I can achieve the Can-Do initiative with more physical events and giving students a real university experience available. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mike. I know you really enjoyed watching yourself. We haven't got any pre-submitted questions from Mike, but if anyone has any questions they want to ask, please put it in the chat now.
Mike, it's Hayley here. I was wondering if you could talk more about Can-Do because it's such a big project and it's something you should be really proud of. And I don't think you talked about it much in the video, so you should give it some justice and talk about it more now.
Thanks, Hayley. Okay, so Can-Do initiative is the Can-Do positive message around COVID-19. There isn't much, and there is always government guidance, university guidance, and every other guidance saying what we can't do in every aspect of obviously student life. So Can-Do is, what we can do, and about, you can meet that person in a household, you can do some stuff as student groups, you can do some stuff on campus, and it's really sort of highlighting those messages, highlighting those activities, and lots of stuff around it. Can-Do has grown into a huge work stream, especially across the union, and we now have 5 subgroups. So we have activities, and we will look at activities all the way up until Easter break. We have spaces, so we are looking at obviously adapting the spaces and really sort of vitalising the spaces for students to have a better sort of learning space and social space across campus. There is also welfare and campaigns, and that comes under a lot of the Christmas closure stuff and the return in January. So how we're going to support students, say, leaving Portsmouth, how we support students coming back, and Portsmouth students staying in Portsmouth over Christmas. So a lot of stuff comes into that with the international bags, the support service while buildings are closed, the Christmas boxes. We also have, what else do we have? Induction talks and Roadshow, which Brendan's here somewhere, which is basically looking at how obviously students coming back into Portsmouth in January and how they can get supported and how they can find out about the union and the support services the university have to offer, and a roadshow about obviously all the support services again. I've missed something. What have I missed? Can't remember, but there's lots of stuff going on, and hopefully you will see a lot more of the can-do messaging, and hopefully you can be involved wherever you can. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mike. I think we've got a question here. So someone said this is a good initiative, Mike, as it still allows for interaction, I guess, within bubbles. I think it's just a comment, sorry.
Yes, I know Shem, don't worry. Me and Shem are good.
If we've got no other questions, we can now move on to our final officer, Rama.
Hello everyone, so my name is Rama and I'm the Learning Experience Officer at the Students' Union. So my main area of work is number one, my Bay Ambassador scheme. I work with Destiny on that, and it's employing 15 students to look at the Bay awarding gap and also work collaboratively with the university to work on projects and also hold them accountable for their action plans. My second one is supporting making sure students are aware of what learning support is available that the university provides. That is still there, but it's not communicated properly to students. And number three is giving students a choice of what assessment type they would like. So for example, if you're better at coursework, you can choose coursework. So that's going well so far. My key success this year has probably been doing ambassador scheme. We've been having really productive conversations with the university on that, and have loads of projects coming up so far, so really good. And one thing I want to achieve this year is probably making the awarding gap much more accessible to students, and also make them more aware of it so they know how to tackle it and get support for it rather than blaming themselves for an issue that is out of their control. So thank you.
Rama, the music was a bit too loud, so we couldn't really hear like all of your points. Do you want to kind of go through it? Because I know you've been doing some more things as well since you've submitted that, so you might want to speak for it.
Yeah, so I kind of just spoke about 3 points, which is the Bay Ambassador scheme, the review of learning support, the review of the learning support for students, and alternative assessments for students as well. So those are my 3 points. I did want to add on a few more COVID projects. I didn't get the chance to say it in the video, but a lot of the things that I've been working on is, alongside the other officers, is no detriment and ECF sort of procedures, particularly like making it more applicable in the COVID setting, making sure students are not experiencing a detriment because of the COVID and disruption to your studies. Alongside Destiny, we've also started the Tackling Racism within Higher Education, and that's been really, well, I wouldn't say successful, because I haven't really started properly, but it's been really productive. I've also been involved in a few like university work streams, so learning and teaching, academic matters, and student services. We've done a few projects on student expectations, and obviously with students not knowing what to expect in the COVID setting and the virtual setting, it's kind of resetting those expectations. So when things don't go to plan, or when you're not having the right amount of lecturers, or you're not getting enough support, you know that this is obviously your right to expect that, and this is where you need to flag it up. And then we've done, I know I've been working with Destiny on the Strange Students campaign, and alongside that with the activist students. And like Destiny and Hayley mentioned, we've been working on this disciplinary panel sort of paper, and also recommendations for the university to better support international students through the disciplinary process. We've also done a lot of, we've just had an event on refugees and asylum seekers and access to education, and also sort of supporting the university to become a university of sanctuary, which means they provide scholarships for refugees and asylum seekers in the community. And then finally, yeah, I think that's it, and just also course rep stuff. I hope I explained that properly.
You did. Thank you, Rama. So we've got 2 pre-submitted questions for you. The first one is, what support is available for students currently on industrial placements, especially since most of us are working from home with little guidance on what is acceptable to accept from companies? I'll just put the question in the chat.
Oh, sorry, that's my question, I think. That's a good question. I think in terms of how I could probably answer that, I think it's very much dependent on what faculty you're in. I think particularly for when the first lockdown sort of happened and the university trying to figure out the support for each student, it kind of depended on what sort of placement you're on. For example, for those on health courses, the support would be very different to those who are working with a much larger company and could possibly work from home. I know for those who are on healthcare courses, they had quite a lot of support and guidance because obviously it kind of related to the current sort of social setting we're in. I think there could have been a lot more support in terms of both from the government and the university in terms of those students. But obviously that is a discussion that could happen this time around, and we're definitely working on the university on that. I think to begin with, we were kind of locked out of those conversations. It very much sat with the faculty because we didn't have that much knowledge, but I think now we're kind of working with the university a bit more on that. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, thank you, Rama. We've got one more pre-submitted question for you. So a student asks, how will the student union hold the university accountable in terms of fees and COVID? Many students have suggested that they have not received the adequate level of lectures online.
In terms of not getting adequate enough lectures online, I think when it comes to that, we have a lot of feedback mechanisms to support students through that. It's really difficult for us to sort of advocate for those specific examples without the student actually coming and telling us about it, because I think the experience of each student is very different, depending on obviously with their virtual experience of learning and teaching as well. And when we have had students come to us and tell us sort of their experiences and whether it's been good or bad, we've always acted upon that directly with their course leader or their ADS, which is an Associate Dean of Students. So when that does happen and you do feel like you're not getting your money's worth almost, there is a process in which you can sort of almost like go through the complaints procedure to get a refund for your money. I'm not exactly sure of the whole process, but I do know that this is something we could possibly support you with. Whoever asked that question, if you do feel like you're not getting your money's worth, and obviously your learning experience hasn't been as great because of the sort of the virtual setting we're in.
Thank you for that, Rama. And we've got another question in the chat. So Isabella said, no detriment policy was very useful to me last year. Is this in place currently as well? So this year?
Yeah, so we're currently in discussions with the university on that. They haven't, we know that the university is, so our stance is always to push for no detriment practice. And I think the word policy is very difficult here. So I'm going to say practice, so no detriment practice, that will always be our position to push for that with the university. So from our conversations we're having with the university at the moment, they're very much for a no detriment practice. We've worked alongside the university in terms of the ECF and making that more accessible to students and more sort of fit into the current COVID context. So whatever detriment a student has experienced because of COVID, an ECF would help with that. And we're currently in conversation for the no detriment practices, which the university should be getting out soon.
Thank you for that, Rama. I'll just take one last question. So a student has said, some students have gone to their lecturers and course reps and have expressed to me they're from a different faculty, that they feel they are not getting any support, and that they feel the union and the university won't do anything to help them. Where should they go if they don't feel the lecturers and the course reps aren't supporting them?
I know I'm not sure exactly the example or the case at the moment, but I do know that we are quite responsive to our emails, and we do have an issue, and we do take it, like, obviously personally, we take that case on personally. So I hope we kind of didn't. I hope you still have hope in the union, because we do actually care, and you know, we are the best go-to because we are independent from the university in terms of sort of accessing our support and obviously supporting you. So I would suggest coming to the union, us as officers, particularly if you want sort of a more learning sort of officer. It's me or Ed. So yeah, I would suggest us. I'm not sure if anyone else wants to pitch in here.
Yeah, Rama, I'll just add as well, like what we can do as well, because when we get the feedback for us, we can raise those issues at a senior level, because sometimes if they're being managed by lecturers, they might not go any further than that, and that's where the issues do keep happening. But at the union, we do have really good access and really good relationships with some of the associate deans for students, so we can pass that on, and they usually get discussed and acted upon as much as they can. So I hope that gives a bit more context and information about what we can do.
Thank you for that, Hayley. I'll just take this last question just for clarification. A student has asked what the no detriment practice is.
Are you asking as to like what it means, or kind of what they are? Because I think they're two different questions. What they are, we kind of, I don't think we know at the moment. It's kind of something that the university's in discussions about now, and we're going to be like sort of hopefully being included in those conversations very, very soon. We have been asking about it every week in our meetings and getting updates, and but we don't actually know what, you know, how different they're going to, because they will be different from our previous no detriment practices, but we're not sure what that difference is. In terms of no detriment, what a no detriment is kind of like method sort of things in place that support students and making sure that their grade doesn't suffer because of the COVID situation. So through extrapolation, what happens in examination boards and how they take into account your grade at the end of the year is kind of how no detriment works.
Thank you, Rama. I want to thank all the officers for, you know, answering the questions and taking those videos. You've all been working very hard. We've all been working very hard this year. We're just going to take a quick 5-minute break just so you can take that time to vote on last year's report, the PASAT report, and the UPSU finance report. It's extremely important because the voting numbers are still very low, so we can just take a 5-minute break for everyone to take that time to vote. Thank you. If anyone's struggling to get onto the website, or if you need any other information, I'll just be here. If everyone's kind of had time to vote, can slowly start coming back. I'll now move on to agenda item 9. So student council report and updates. As I've already briefly explained what the student council is before, the new roles within the student council consist of 5 student experience officers, 5 education officers and 5 liberation officers, and a chair. I'll just now be reading the report. So UAB is the primary decision-making body for all UPSU student ideas and democratic decisions. All student ideas which have passed through the Have Your Say process will come before UAB for decisions and actioning. UAB members will then provide guidance, advice and support to these campaigns. This group was established in 2014 by the University of Portsmouth Students' Union as part of the democratic review process. This group aims to represent all students at the University of Portsmouth in order to give students across the university a voice and opportunity to improve the student experience. The board is selected from the respective networks and faculties in order to effectively balance both academic and demographic representation. This body should go some way to ensuring the equality of voices for all students and allows for a clear expression of student rights, wants and needs. The key campaigns that have been passed through UAB is run the student bus service 24/7, wider access to water fountains on campus, a request for microwaves across the university, regulate the temperature of the library, keep the water hole open, save UOP English Literature Department, 2-way university bus service, elected a full-time representative for sports, extra support during COVID-19, BAME education workshop and BAME solidarity pledge. The key successes are a strong core of members and student representatives who are engaged and contribute to the body, often frictionless working between Have Your Say and the union actioning body, a strong buy from sabbatical officers and constructive decision and inclusion of all ideas. The areas for improvement are attendance and contribution to discussion from the members' needs and improvement, more campaign-based work and progress needed. Some changes to the composition of the body may be needed in order to nail down full representation. This, however, will be linked to member attendance. More contributions and papers needed to fully utilise the body to the checks and balance border. The new developments for 2020-21, the body has been transformed into the Student Council. This change was by the changes to the full-time officers and desire to make sure that the union is flexible and remains extremely reactive to student representation needs. The new composition will focus heavily on the union strategy of becoming an activist organisation, and this will mean that we will look to undertake a larger amount of campaigns, both about the student experience and liberation, and will look to become a leader on campaigning with the region. This change has meant that we have decided to close our networks project and transition to having part-time officers, as well as reducing the overall amount of students on the council. We hope that this change will mean that our officers and the union will be able to greater represent you on a larger amount of your University of Portsmouth experience. These positions are now ready for recruitment, and if any students are interested in applying for any of these roles, please visit the careers page that we'll just put the link to in the chat. I wanted to highlight that there is no voting for this item, but students are encouraged to submit questions. Sorry. Do we have any questions on that? Sorry. Yep, I'll now move on to agenda item 9, policy lap discussion. So the policy lapse looks at the reviews items that were submitted on the Have Your Say platform or UAB in the calendar 2018 that fits UPSU's policy definition. Okay, we can now start with our first motion, free education motion. Rama, was that you, sir?
I think it was something that was going to be renewed. It's up for renewal or something.
One second, we're just. Okay. We're just putting the motion in the link now, so you will have access to it. Sorry, one second. Okay, so the free education motion is one. The higher education has, the union notes are that the higher education has undergone radical changes since the last general election, and that 55% of the students that attend the University of Portsmouth come from low-income backgrounds, that 1 out of 4 children in Portsmouth North parliamentary constituency live in the abject poverty, and that 1/3 do in Portsmouth South. The education is a primary route out of poverty. That £9,000 a year for a degree is damaging universities across the country, as other funding such as HEFC funding is being slashed, meaning that universities are relying more on commercial income and subsidized education, and that is adding costs to students. Cost reduction also means that lack of investment is in many areas that aren't seen as profitable or that are expensive. That the Treasury amongst think tanks across the UK predict 46% of student loans will not be paid back, that access to education should be fair for all. So I know that there's some statistics here that aren't updated, and we wanted to put a motion to update this.
Are we allowed to advise?
Is there anyone who wants to speak for or against this motion? Sorry. Rama?
I'd probably want to speak against it. I think the principle of obviously having free education is definitely something that we want to champion. But I think the policy, the sort of document that you sent through is really sort of outdated. I think it definitely does need to be revisited in the current context we're in.
Thank you for that, Rama. Does anyone want to speak against the motion?
Destiny, it's Hayley here. So yeah, some of the discussions that we have had about this with the university, while we're initially supporting that students, you know, particularly this year, aren't getting value for money, there's lots of students in not getting value for money because the way of teaching, the way teaching is presented this year is different, and you know, a lot of students are not happy about it. Of course, there's lots of, as someone's just said in the chat, someone from low income backgrounds, it's, you know, it's something that's absolutely important, that the cost of university is a barrier for a lot of students. However, when speaking to the university, we understand that it's not just something that the university can do, it's something that is a government, something that we do have to challenge the government for. So a lot of the way it works is that when students sign up to university, there's student fees that are funded towards universities, so for you to deliver teaching, etc. So if universities, for example, were to give full refunds to everyone this year, they would pretty much just go bankrupt. So while we don't support universities giving refunds to students this year, but we do support government lobbying, even though that's such a bigger, bit more difficult and structural process that is not just limited to university reports of students, but all students. So I hope that makes sense. It's, you know, it's quite difficult. We really are keen to look at ways where the money of tuition fees goes to be more transparent. So students can be fully aware of where that money goes and can challenge that, because if they're not getting value for money, students can have more say and more rights about where that money goes, rather than completely refunding fees. But I'd really like to hear more about what students think, so we can sort of inform our next steps in the policy further, because there's lots to unpack and lots to learn.
I know students have been writing things in the chat, and I'd just like to assure you all that that will be taken into account and consideration. If we have no other questions, we can move on to the next motion. I'd just like to remind you all that you can vote as well as we go. So the next motion is an anti-FGM stance. So the union notes are that since 1985, it has been a serious criminal offence under the Prohibition of Female Circumcision Act to perform FGM or to assist a girl to perform FGM on herself. The Female Genital Mutilation Act 2003 tightened this law to criminalise FGM being carried out on the UK citizens overseas. There has been an increasing awareness of the issue of female genital mutilation in England, with the national newspaper articles and documentaries on Channel 4. MPs are probing the issues of female genital mutilation in the UK, with a select inquiry probing why, since FGM was made a crime in 1985, it still occurs and there have been no prosecutions. Campaigns estimate that there are 66,000 women living in Britain who have suffered FGM, with a further 24,000 girls aged 11 or under thought to be at risk. Do we have anyone for or against this motion? Does anyone want to make any points?
Destiny, Hayley here again. I just wanted to say that it's something that I'd probably support. I think, however, it does seem to be quite outdated. I don't think, honestly, I've heard much about this policy, and there's nothing that in the past couple of years that I've been officer that we have been doing for this. So if this was put forward, this is something that we would, well, if this was supported by you as students, that we would do more work on this, as it hasn't been picked up in a long time.
Thank you for that, Hayley. So our next motion is the drug detection in halls. If you do have questions, can you come forward and kind of speak about those questions that you have and the points that you want to make? Sorry.
Destiny, I just had a quick question. I wanted to find out what we've done already in terms of the anti-FGM stance, like if we had access to that information, and what you would want to do or what the union wants to do if like supporting this motion. Like if there's any information about that, that would be great.
Hey, Lisa, I know you've unmuted. Did you want to answer this question?
Yeah, like I said, there's I don't think much has been done. If you do find what other officers might have done in previous years, you can find it on the union website if you just search it in the search bar. However, again, we're not really sure about, I think we need a bit more information, and because this policy is quite out of date. So what we would have to do is see what the current situation is and how we can, you know, support the motion that we are against FGM, and maybe campaigns or wider work we can do that affect students in this area. So sorry, that probably wasn't a well-informed answer, but I hope that helps.
Right, thank you.
Thank you for that question, Bula, and thank you for answering, Hayley. We've also got another question from Carol saying, would we be able to lobby with other unions for the right of free female sanctuary products, as like Scotland has recently done? So this is something that me, Hayley and Rama are actually working on, and we're looking to write a letter to our MP to get free sanctuary products in our city, and Hayley is also liaising with the university to get free sanctuary products in our university. We are also looking to speak to other unions about this as well. So if we have no other questions, I can move on to our next motion. Drug detection in halls motion. So the union notes are that the Misuse of Drugs Act 1971 makes possession substances classified as Class A, B and C illegal in the United Kingdom. A report published by the NUS exploring the attitudes and experiences of 2,810 students at the UK providers in 2018 found that 56 of the respondents he used drugs at some point. Of the 56, 94% stated that they had used cannabis at some point. Of the 56, 67 stated that they had taken MDMA, ecstasy, and at some point. 48 of those had used drugs felt like it had affected their academic attendance in some way. 14% of those that had used drugs had come into contact with the criminal justice system as a result of doing so. 775 respondents felt like the drug used had affected their health. Do we have any points for or against the motion? If you do, please speak up.
I think as well, Destiny, what we have put in the motion that that the only enforcement of this policy would be impractical. The taking drugs and illicit substances should not occur in halls accommodation. I think while I think our stance, particularly the work I'm doing as well, that you know students should be more informed. Students should get the right support. We think the sort of policing. I think the policing of drugs is unproductive. I think if students are going to take it, they need to be informed. They need to know that there are consequences of what they may be, and if they need support, if it does get out of control, we have that. We can support them, because the more we criminalize it, the more dangerous it might become. As I mentioned in the video, I think I might have mentioned that I'm working on introducing some free drug testing kits. So that's for students to be able to test drugs they're taking, know what they're taking, and be aware of the consequences of those. So it's just being more informed about drugs, getting more support. So I would say that we're now personally that we should vote against this motion.
I think a student suggested that we have a drug awareness seminar and something to educate students about as well, Heidi. If anyone has any other points or arguments, please speak up.
I think I just kind of agree with what's kind of been said. Like the war on drugs approach isn't the way forward, because one of the points we're trying to make, especially with like Hayley's manifesto point about drug testing kits, is that I think we know that drugs are a part of what people do at university. It's a thing that happens, and while there should be measures to control it and to make sure that students are aware of what they're doing and they can do it in a safe way, I think having that stance fosters a more comfortable environment, and it encourages students to be more open about discussing certain things. And if we adopt a war on drugs approach, it's actually going to alienate a lot of people.
Thank you for that, Dan. And Andy has put the link in the chat, so if you want to vote, you can vote. The link is there. We can now move on to our next motion.
Excuse me, can I just mention something?
Yep.
I believe, unfortunately, Freshers Week this year was, you know, non-existent really, but I was here last year, and I feel that more of the Portsmouth-based support organisations at Freshers Week would actually make sure that people were aware, if they have got a problem, where to go to. All right, so it's been on the caring side rather than the enforcement side. I think there's two ways of looking at the drug situation, and I think the union really should try and do more support rather than assisting the authorities, for instance. I'm not saying that we should support drugs. What I'm saying is, we know it happens. Let's see how we could support people who are in that position.
Thank you for that, Joe, sorry. Hayley, did you want to speak a bit about your drug testing kits? Just to answer Joe's question, sorry.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think there's different ways how they work. So the sort of general way they work is that you test them, and there's different kits for different drugs, and it will come up with different colors to show whether it is that drug or if it isn't. I think there's, you know, with the cases of mutiny a couple of years ago, where some people, like young people, have died due to drug intake. They weren't aware of what they were taking. So the drug testing kits would allow students to, you know, see what they're actually taking then they're well aware of that. And, you know, if it is something that they didn't think it was, then they can be informed about what to do next. So there's support there to perhaps either report it so it doesn't happen to other students, or to like not take it completely, but there will be someone there to support you with that. So we've had some good conversations with people at the University of Bristol, and they've already had it, and they work quite closely with the drug reduction support in the city. That's worked quite well for them. So we're seeing how we can implement that here in Portsmouth to extend the support that's already out in the city for students. So I hope that gives a bit more detail.
Thank you so much for that, Hayley and Joe. I hope we did answer your questions and concerns.
Sorry, is it all right if I just add something quickly?
Yep.
So I was just going to say, there should be like a justification / analysis as to why or like how much the test kits will cost versus the impact that it's having on the NHS of these students then having a bad effect, sometimes overdosing, and obviously that leads to other problems like mental health awareness, and I think that a good justification to get that done in place quicker would be the cost difference between, if it is possible to calculate it, how much drugs are affecting the students versus how much the test kits would be, and how much that could reduce the potential like costs of taking and using the drugs.
Thank you for that, Carol. If everyone's okay, I'd like to move on to the next motion. Any other questions or points? No? Okay, I'll move on to our next motion. So item 4, zero tolerance to racism. This motion was put forward by Bula. So the reasons why this policy is needed is, okay, because this is a motion that was put through a student very recently, I'll allow the student to kind of go through the points and introduce herself. Bula, do you want to?
All right, can you hear me? Okay, so I'm Bula. I am a BAME student ambassador, which is a scheme that Rama actually spoke about. Rama and Destiny have been working on. And so in conversations, obviously in light of the Black Lives Matter movement that happened recently, and well, I mean, racism isn't recent, but with the wave of attention that it's had, we've been working on how we can get the university to be quite active with what they've said, the responses that they have, but to actually see some action to it. So for the purpose of this is for the university to introduce a zero tolerance to racism policy. The reasons why this policy is needed is that, first of all, it's not to punish anyone, it's to who doesn't understand racism, but actually to educate, because the zero tolerance to racism policy actually forces us to have a conversation about how race permeates into every aspect of a student's experience. And how it happens when in conversations in classes and outside conversations in classes as well. So it's really important to have that because it fosters that environment to have that conversation. It's also necessary because in disagreeing to adopt the policy, the university is being complicit in institutional racism. So it's important to have a firm stance that we do not partner with anyone that has that engages in bias or discrimination of any kind. And it's also to protect BAME students from being freely discriminated against, whether they're on campus or not. So the aims of the policy are to encourage a dialogue on systematic racism and how it manifests in its different shapes and forms, to put pressure on the university in showcasing how complaints of racism are dealt with. So helping students understand how the disciplinary committees work, who they can turn to, how to report racist experiences, and also to just put, to guarantee safety and welfare of BAME students. So in terms of obviously Black Lives Matter and all the things that are happening, mental health has been a huge conversation about, especially about BAME individuals. So I guess it's also to put pressure on the university to take into account that actually BAME students are often disregarded or overlooked in terms of conversations around mental health and how race and racism plays into that. So yeah, I think those are the major aims of the policy.
Thank you for that, Bula. And I'd like to, remind everyone that you could vote on all of these policies and motions that are put through. If we can just put the link again, just so students can have access to that. And the full policies will be online at upsu.net/AMM if you do want to go through them again. Voting will be open for 24 hours. Is there any students who kind of want to speak for or against that motion? No? We can move on then. We're coming towards the end of our AMM now, and 6 people have been chosen out of random to receive the awards. So Jasmine Marley, Fabe Stott, Lauren Arthur, Jessica Smith, Mithy Armstrong, Joanna Rangeleva. You've all been selected to receive prizes. You can pick a £50 Amazon voucher, National Express voucher, Tesco voucher, and members of staff will be in touch with you. Jasmine, you look very confused. It was picked out.
I didn't know this was a thing. I didn't know this was a thing. I heard my name. I'm like, I'm only a first year, so like this is new for me.
Yeah, so you get picked out of random for kind of attending the AMM. I want to thank you all for coming today and attending and giving your views, as it's very important to us. And again, I just want to remind you all to vote, and that the results will be announced tomorrow afternoon. So keep an eye on the Gpsu social media. That's all. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Destiny.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hey guys, just one thing before you leave. Is this recorded? Will this be recorded? How you doing, Mike? Destiny? Rama? How are you? I can't know. How has everyone been, man? Has it been good so far for you guys?
We're good. How are you?
Let me put a video on so you can see me.
Yeah, we can't see you.
Yeah, I want to be incognito. I love being incognito. Hang on, I'm going to start a video. It's been really slow. I think there's 20 people on the platform, so like starting a video really slows it down. So I could speak if that's all right, but my video is starting. Yeah, a good idea actually. I quite like Mike's idea because there've been a couple of students been inquiring, like, is it possible for us to have like little bubbles where we can have little sessions, maybe like salsa and all the other stuff. And I think as there's mass testing here, it kind of mitigates any issues that may arise in regards to like COVID-19. Oh, there I am. Oh, hello everyone.
Here he is, Mr. Shem.
You say, you sexy devil. Anyway, sorry.
Your background's so good.
Sorry, yeah, you like it, isn't it?
It's raining here. The weather looks good there.
Oh, it's raining by me too. You know, it's an illusion. I'm a magician, actually. Yeah, anyway, no, but no, on a serious note here with Mike, yeah, it's been really good actually because I like to see all this working because if it opens for like study groups and for like small bubbles, and in those bubbles, do you have to be like always there with those same set of people every time at a given time, or is it that flexible that we can kind of mix and match?
Yeah, so it'll come back down to obviously the government guidance to hopefully it'll go back to like the bubbles of 6 and the educational setting that if you're on campus, then you can meet obviously in bigger bubbles.
Yeah.
So like you with your society, obviously there might be a chance that you could meet in a 20-30 with them. And then like if you were to go and do like activities, you could meet in groups of 6 and stuff and sort of have multiple bubbles within that way. But we just need obviously the government guidance to reflect that again. And I think until sort of people start coming back in January and start doing the blended approach at the end of January, Feb, then so it won't be for a little while, but it will be soon.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. That's fine. That's fine. It's just something to put in the box. You know, one more less stress because I must admit for a lot of guys this online meeting is quite strenuous for some people who suffer, who needs to have social interaction. As you can see, all I need is my coconut tree and I'm all right, you know, but some people require a bit more. So it's good. Actually, that's a proactive approach. I like that aspect. Good. Thank you on that one. And well done on to everyone. You know, you guys doing a fantastic job, I must admit. I'm not blowing smoke up many people's rear posterior here, but it's a tough time, and given what you guys have to work with, you know, it came off really nice, you know. So well done, you know. I'm actually looking to see if I can meet you guys to pick some of your ideas on how you do it, you know. So I'll be seeing you, Mike. I'm definitely gonna be needing some of your ideas. Rama, how are you? What happened to your video?
I don't know if it was just the editing.
It was like a DJ fest day, and I was just popping along. All right. I'm going, guys. I gotta go now, you know. Thank you again. You know, have a good time, and all the best for the leave, yeah?
Take care, Shem.
Thank you so much.
Merry Christmas, brother.
Merry Christmas to you too, and a Happy New Year. And I'll tell you what, right? I'll bring the festive elixir of life, and we'll meet up and have a good festive cheer. What do you think about that?
No, I'm not drinking that again. I know what it done to me last time.
Yeah, man, it's only water, guys. I promise you, it's water. Right. Sorry about that. I'll disappear now. Take care. All the best.
Bye, Shem.
Thank you so much.
No problem. It's not allowing me to leave. All right, that's fine. That's fine. Slow and steady wins the race.
Do we have any other questions or anyone that wants to? If not, we can just end the Zoom call. No? Okay. Thank you all for coming, and thank you, officers, too.
Thank you, Destiny.
Thank you.
Okay.